1770, a French colony. People start dying, and nobody can explain why. First comes the stomach pain, then the vomiting, then blood in places blood should never be. No wound, no obvious cause. Just healthy people collapsing within days of each other, one household after another. 6 weeks later, roughly 15,000 of them are dead. Then the story gets even stranger. This disease, one of the deadliest outbreaks in the history of the Americas, almost vanishes from the record completely. It sits forgotten, unexamined, gathering dust for generations. It takes over 2 centuries and a bioterrorism scare on the other side of the world before anyone finally figures out what actually happened here. The year is 1770. The place is Saint-Domingue, a French colony we now know as Haiti. It was the richest colony on earth at the time. Enslaved Africans grew the sugar and coffee that made France wealthy beyond measure. None of that wealth ever made it back to them. The whole system ran on one fragile assumption, that food would keep arriving from outside. The colony simply didn't grow enough to feed itself. Every ship that came in mattered. Every ship that didn't mattered even more. That assumption is about to fail. And when it does, it won't just be a story about disease. It'll be a story about what happens when one disaster cracks open every weakness in a system at the exact same moment. Let's understand just how much this colony depended on the outside world, and how little margin it had for error. By the late 1700s, Saint-Domingue produced close to half of all the sugar sold in Europe. It supplied more than half the world's coffee too. An enormous amount of wealth, flowing out of one small island, sacks of sugar and coffee loaded onto ships bound for France. Almost none of it belonged to the people growing it. Around 500,000 enslaved people lived in the colony. That's roughly 9 out of every 10 people on the island. Their food, salted beef, codfish, came from somewhere else entirely. Shipped in month after month, because the plantations that made the colony rich left almost no land for growing food. No local backup. No plan B. On June 3, 1770, the ground gave out instead. At 7:15 in the evening, a massive earthquake hit near Port-au-Prince. The city came down almost instantly, walls folding into the streets in a matter of seconds. Somewhere between 200 and 250 people were crushed under buildings that simply gave way. A tragedy, but not even close to the worst part of this story. Because after the earthquake, Spain's trade restrictions stayed exactly where they were. No meat, no fish, no exceptions, even with the city in ruins and rubble still settling. Rules stayed rules. There was no emergency shipment coming to save anyone. Food stopped arriving. People started to starve. This is where it gets darker. While the French side of the island was starving, something else was happening across the border. Cattle were dying. Fast. In huge numbers, herd after herd, with no clear explanation. Historians call this an epizootic, basically an epidemic, but for animals instead of people. A rancher with a sick herd should destroy it. Burn the carcasses. Cut the losses. That's the responsible move. But these ranchers didn't want to lose everything for nothing. So they salted and smoked the meat from their dying cattle instead. That turned it into a cured product called tassau. And they sold it straight into the starving French side of the island. Under any normal circumstances, people would have avoided that meat entirely. Everyone knew it was the cheap, risky option, the kind of meat you only bought when you had no other choice left. But famine doesn't leave room for caution. When the alternative is starving to death, you eat what's in front of you. No questions asked. So they ate the tassau. 6 weeks later, roughly 15,000 people were dead. 15,000 people. Gone in less time than it takes most of us to plan a vacation. The symptoms were brutal. Stomach pain first, then violent vomiting, then bloody diarrhea, which is exactly where the disease got its grim nickname, the bloody flux. Nothing on the skin, nothing visible to explain it. Doctors at the time had no framework for what they were seeing. No microscope could show them the answer. They couldn't treat it. They couldn't even properly name it. And then almost as fast as it appeared, people just stopped talking about it. It practically disappeared from history. But this wasn't the end of the mystery. It was only the beginning. Here's the strangest part. For over 2 centuries, almost nobody studied what actually happened in Saint-Domingue that summer. There's a reason for that gap. France didn't set up any system for tracking colonial epidemics until 1776, 6 years too late. Saint-Domingue's own scientific society wasn't founded until 1784. 14 years too late to matter. The only detailed account we have comes from a historian named Michel Placide Justin. He wrote it down around 1825, more than 50 years after the deaths, working from second-hand memory and old records, not first-hand observation. So the epidemic just sat there, forgotten, unsolved, buried in an obscure book almost nobody was reading. Then, in 2001, something completely unrelated changed everything. Anthrax-laced letters started showing up across the United States, a bioterrorism scare that made headlines everywhere. Suddenly, scientists wanted answers. How dangerous could anthrax actually get under natural conditions? How far could it really spread, outside of a lab, outside of an envelope? That question sent an epidemiologist named David Morans back through old colonial records most historians had long since stopped bothering with. He found Justin's forgotten account of 1770, and he started checking its details against everything modern science knows about anthrax. The key piece was the meat itself. The bacteria behind anthrax form tough, resistant spores, a kind of armored shell that lets them survive conditions that would kill almost anything else. Spores that survive salting, survive smoking, survive being undercooked afterward. That's exactly how the tassau had been prepared, almost 2.5 centuries earlier. Morans ruled out the obvious alternatives, too, one by one. Plague doesn't spread through contaminated meat like this. Neither does smallpox. Nothing else fit the pattern as cleanly as anthrax did. His conclusion, published decades later in peer-reviewed research, this was very likely intestinal anthrax. Possibly one of the largest anthrax epidemics ever recorded in human history, hiding in plain sight the entire time. This disease didn't vanish for good in 1770. It came back. Milder outbreaks hit Saint-Domingue again in 1772, then kept recurring through 1775, year after year, like the island couldn't quite shake it. It even spread to the nearby colony of Guadeloupe. This time, colonial doctors actually wrote down what they saw: lesions on the hands of anyone who touched a sick animal, violent stomach illness in anyone who ate one. Their notes matched the anthrax pattern perfectly, years before anyone had a name for the bacteria causing it. One more number is worth sitting with. Separate from the 15,000 who died from the disease, roughly another 15,000 people are believed to have died of plain starvation, victims of that same famine. Add both together, and one earthquake's aftermath may have cost this colony 30,000 lives. That's an entire small city, wiped out by a chain reaction nobody saw coming. Anthrax never fully left, either. It's still present in Haiti's animal population today. It still makes someone sick every so often, more than 250 years after that first outbreak. A disease that once had no name, that killed by the thousands with nobody able to explain why, is now one of the most studied bacteria on the planet. This isn't really a story about bacteria. Those people almost certainly knew that meat wasn't safe. They ate it anyway. Starving to death felt like the more certain outcome. It's easy to judge that decision from a full stomach. And think about how long this stayed buried. Not because the evidence wasn't there. It was the whole time, sitting in an old book on a shelf. Nobody had a reason to open it, until a crisis on the other side of the world forced someone to look. History doesn't always get solved by people looking for the answer. Sometimes it just takes one person stumbling onto the right question, centuries later than anyone expected, chasing an entirely different problem. Makes you wonder how many other disasters are still sitting out there. Misfiled. Misunderstood. Just waiting for the right question to come along. So next time you're certain you'd never eat something you knew could kill you, ask yourself what real hunger might do to that certainty. Most of us have never actually been tested on it. And next time you think history has already explained everything worth explaining, remember this. An epidemic that killed 15,000 people sat forgotten for 230 years, waiting for someone to look again. If stories like this, the ones history almost let slip through the cracks, are your thing, that's exactly what we do here every week. Subscribe if you want to keep digging into the darker, stranger corners of human history with us. Next week, we're heading into another chapter of the past that almost nobody talks about, and this one might be even harder to shake.